The cold comes first. Not the kind of cold that nips at your fingers or reddens your cheeks. This is the cold that finds your bones. The cold that turns breath into daggers in your lungs. The cold that makes men weep and horses scream and the ground beneath your feet betray you with every step. You are standing in the Alps in 218 BC, and you are dying. Not quickly, not mercifully, slowly, with every footfall on black ice, with every gust of wind that strips the warmth from your body like skin from a corpse. Around you, men are falling, not from arrows, not from swords, from exhaustion, from despair, from the simple, brutal mathematics of flesh versus stone versus winter. And ahead of you, barely visible through the snow and the screaming wind, rides a man who swore an oath as a child that brought you here. His name is Hannibal Barca, and he is taking you to destroy Rome. This is not a story about heroism. This is a story about hatred, so pure it could melt iron. About genius so terrifying it would haunt an empire for generations. About an army that should never have existed, marching toward a city that should never have trembled. But it did tremble. Rome, eternal Rome, unconquerable Rome woke up screaming because of this man. And what he did to get there broke everyone who followed him. If you want to experience history the way it was felt, not just remembered, if you want to understand how one man nearly erased the greatest empire the world had ever known, then stay with me. Subscribe now. Because this story took everything from the men who lived it, and it demands everything from those who witness it. The boy is 9 years old when his father makes him swear. His name is Hannibal, son of Hannibal Barca, and he stands before an altar in Carthage, watching the smoke from burning offerings rise into the African sky. His father's hand is on his shoulder. The grip is iron. Swear it, Hamilcar says. The boy doesn't understand everything yet. He understands Rome. He understands defeat. He understands that his city, proud Carthage, jewel of the Mediterranean, has been humiliated, forced to its knees, made to pay tribute to the barbarians across the water, who speak with hard consonants and dream of conquest. Swear you will be Rome's enemy, his father says. Swear you will never be her friend. Swear you will bring fire to her gates and make her mothers weep. The boy swears. He means it. Children make promises they don't understand. But this boy will remember. This oath will become the architecture of his soul. Every decision he makes, every battle he fights, every man he sacrifices, all of it will trace back to this moment. To his father's hand on his shoulder, to the smoke rising from the altar, to the hatred passed from one generation to the next like an inheritance. Hamilcar Barca is a lion caged by Rome's terms of peace. He fought them in the First Punic War and lost, but only because Carthage abandoned him. Only because the merchants and politicians in the Senate cared more about gold than glory. Now he watches Rome grow fat on Sicily, the island that should have been Carthaginian, and the rage in him ferments into something toxic and patient. He takes his hatred to Iberia, Spain, where Carthaginian influence still holds. Where silver flows from mines and tribes can be conquered and turned into soldiers. Where he can build something Rome will regret ignoring. And he brings his son. Hannibal learns war the way other boys learn to read. He learns that victory belongs to the bold, that fear is a weapon sharper than any sword, that men follow confidence and die for it. He watches his father subdue tribes, forge alliances, extract wealth from the earth, and turn it into power. And then his father dies. Hamilcar drowns in a river during a campaign. The details are murky. The loss is absolute. Hannibal is 18 years old. The grief is immediate. The inheritance is heavier. His brother-in-law Hasdrubal takes command of the Carthaginian forces in Iberia. Hannibal serves under him, learns patience, learns politics, but the fire in him never dims. The oath never fades. Rome is always there, in the back of his mind, in his dreams, in the way he plans and trains and prepares. 8 years later, Hasdrubal is assassinated. And the army, the soldiers who have watched Hannibal grow from a boy into something sharper, proclaim him commander. He is 26 years old. Rome has no idea what is coming. Carthage is not Rome. This is essential to understand. Rome is a republic of farmers turned soldiers, of citizens who see themselves as the inheritors of divine destiny. Carthage is a merchant empire, a city of traders and sailors, of men who measure success in silver and grain rather than blood and glory. The Carthaginian Senate does not want war with Rome. They remember the first war. They remember the cost. They remember the humiliation. And they remember that fighting Rome is like fighting the tide. You might win battles, but the water always comes back. But Hannibal does not care what the Senate wants. He has the army. He has Iberia's wealth. He has his father's name and his own growing legend. And he has a plan that will make Rome forget how to sleep. There is a city in Iberia called Saguntum. It is technically independent, but Rome has claimed it as an ally. A line in the sand, a test. Hannibal crosses the line. He besieges Saguntum. The city holds for 8 months. When it falls, Hannibal's soldiers slaughter everyone inside. Men, women, children. The massacre is thorough. The message is clear. Rome is furious. They send ambassadors to Carthage demanding Hannibal be handed over. The Carthaginian Senate is terrified. They want to appease Rome. They want to avoid war. But Hannibal is already moving. He doesn't wait for Carthage to betray him. He doesn't wait for Rome to prepare. He takes his army 40,000 infantry, 10,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants, and begins marching north, not by sea, where Rome's navy dominates, by land, through Iberia, through Gaul, through the Alps, into Italy itself. It is the spring of 218 BC, and Hannibal Barca is going to do what no one thought possible. He is going to bring the war to Rome's doorstep, and he is going to walk there. The army is a nightmare of contradictions. Iberians with their short swords and leather armor. Numidian cavalry from North Africa, light and fast, riding without saddles. Libyan infantry, disciplined and brutal. Gallic warriors, tall and savage, who paint their bodies and fight half naked. Balearic slingers who can put a stone through a man's skull at 50 paces. They speak different languages, worship different gods, hate each other almost as much as they hate Rome, but they follow Hannibal. Not because he pays well, though he does. Not because he promises them glory, though he offers it. They follow him because he makes them believe, because he stands at the front during battles, because he sleeps on the ground with them, because when he speaks, they hear a man who will win or die and doesn't care which, as long as Rome bleeds. The march through Iberia is brutal. Tribes attack, rivers flood, men desert. But Hannibal keeps moving, keeps pushing, keeps his eyes fixed on the north. By the time they reach the Pyrenees, he has lost thousands. He doesn't stop. By the time they cross into Gaul, Rome knows he's coming. They still don't believe it. The Romans send armies to intercept him. But Hannibal is faster, smarter, always 3 moves ahead. He bribes Gallic tribes. He avoids confrontation when he can. He marches at night. He splits his forces and reunites them like a magician playing with fire. And then, in the early autumn of 218 BC, he reached the Alps. The mountains rise before the army like the teeth of some ancient god. Snow caps the peaks even in summer. The passes are narrow, treacherous, guarded by hostile tribes who know every stone and every ambush point. No one has ever crossed the Alps with an army this size. Hannibal doesn't care. He leads them upward. The crossing of the Alps is where legends die. The first days are merely exhausting. The paths are steep, the air thin, the soldiers struggling under the weight of their equipment. The elephants, those magnificent war beasts that terrified enemies on flat ground, stumble and bellow, their massive feet sliding on loose rock. Then the tribes attack. Gauls who live in these mountains descend on the Carthaginian column like wolves on wounded prey. They roll boulders down from above. They strike at the rear guard and vanish into the rocks. They know the army is vulnerable, stretched out in a thin line, unable to maneuver. Hannibal fights them off, but every skirmish costs him men he can't replace. And then the real enemy arrives. Winter. It comes early in the high passes. The temperature drops. The wind howls. Snow begins to fall, light at first, then heavier, until the world becomes a white void. The paths disappear beneath drifts. Men lose their footing and fall, screaming, into chasms that swallow them whole. The cold is relentless. At night, soldiers huddle together for warmth. But some don't wake up. They simply freeze, still sitting upright, eyes open, staring at nothing. The horses are dying. The elephants are dying. The men are dying. And there is no going back. Hannibal drives them forward, because forward is the only direction that matters. He walks among them, refuses shelter, refuses comfort. When a path is blocked by rockslide, he orders fires lit, heats the stone, then douses it with vinegar to crack it, and his men dig through with their bare hands. He is everywhere. He is merciless. He is their only hope. 15 days. 15 days of hell carved into ice and stone, of men weeping, of horses screaming, of Hannibal standing at the front, staring down at the impossible descent on the Italian side, and knowing that if he falters, If he shows doubt for even a moment, the entire army will collapse. He points down the mountain. There, he says, Italy, and beyond it Rome. His voice carries. His certainty is a weapon. They descend. When the Carthaginian army finally stumbles out of the Alps and into the Po Valley in late October, they are ghosts. Hannibal left Iberia with 50,000 men. He arrives in Italy with 26,000. Half his army is gone. The elephants, those symbols of Carthaginian might, are nearly all dead. But the survivors are forged into something harder than iron. They have crossed the impossible. They have survived what should have killed them. And now they stand on Roman soil, filthy and starving and unbroken. Hannibal looks at them, and he smiles, because Rome has no idea what's coming. The Romans are confused. They knew Hannibal was coming. They sent armies to stop him in Gaul. But he slipped past them, vanished into the Alps, and now he's here, in northern Italy, and the Senate is scrambling. They send a consul named Publius Cornelius Scipio north, with an army to deal with the Carthaginian problem. Scipio is competent, experienced, confident. He is also about to learn what it means to fight Hannibal Barca. The first battle happens at the Trebia River in December. Hannibal's army is outnumbered. The Romans are rested, well-fed, eager for glory. It's a cold morning. The river is swollen with winter rain, freezing. Hannibal sends his Numidian cavalry to harass the Roman camp. The Romans, furious, chase them. The Numidians retreat, drawing the Romans forward, across the river into the cold water. The Roman soldiers are soaked, freezing, exhausted from the chase. And then Hannibal springs the trap. His brother Mago, hidden with a force of cavalry and infantry in tall grass near the river, strikes the Roman rear. The Carthaginian line holds in the center, while the superior Numidian cavalry crushes the Roman flanks. The Romans are surrounded, panicking, dying in the freezing mud. It is a slaughter. Fewer than 10,000 Romans escape. Rome is stunned, but not defeated. They raise more legions. They send more consuls. They have the resources, the manpower, the pride. Hannibal is one man with an exhausted army, deep in hostile territory. He can't win. They believe this. 6 months later, at Lake Trasimene, Hannibal proves them wrong again. He lures a Roman army, commanded by the consul Gaius Flaminius, into a narrow valley along the lakeshore. Early morning. Heavy fog. The Romans march in column, blind, confident, careless. Hannibal's forces are hidden in the hills on both sides. When the Romans are fully committed, trapped between the lake and the slopes, Hannibal attacks. It is an ambush so perfect it will be studied for centuries. The Romans can't see, can't organize, can't retreat. The Carthaginians descend on them like a landslide. The killing is efficient and total. Flaminius dies fighting. 15,000 Romans die with him. Thousands more are driven into the lake and drowned. Hannibal loses 1,500 men. Rome is no longer stunned. Rome is terrified. Panic spreads through the city like plague. Hannibal is in Italy. He has destroyed 2 Roman armies in less than a year. He is marching south, and nothing is stopping him. Refugees flood into Rome with stories of slaughter, of fields soaked in blood, of the Carthaginian general who appears and disappears like a ghost. The Senate appoints a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus, to deal with the crisis. Fabius is old, cautious, wise. He understands something the other Roman commanders didn't. Hannibal can't be beaten in open battle. So Fabius refuses to fight him. He shadows Hannibal's army, stays in the hills, avoids confrontation. He destroys crops, burns villages, denies Hannibal's supplies, waits for time and exhaustion to do what Roman swords couldn't. It's a brilliant strategy. It's also unbearable for Roman pride. The people hate Fabius. They call him the delayer. They mock him. They demand action. They want a general who will meet Hannibal head-on and crush him, restore Rome's honor, end this nightmare. So Rome gives them what they want. In the summer of 216 BC, the Romans raised the largest army they've ever fielded. 86,000 men, 8 legions, under the command of 2 consuls, Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus. They march south to destroy Hannibal once and for all. They meet him at a place called Cannae. Cannae is a small town in southern Italy. Flat terrain, open fields, perfect for the kind of massive infantry clash the Romans excel at. Hannibal has 40,000 men. The Romans have twice that. By every measure of logic, Rome should win. But Hannibal doesn't fight with logic. He fights with geometry. On the morning of August 2, 216 BC, The two armies faced each other across the plain. The Romans form up in their traditional dense formation, thousands of men packed shoulder to shoulder, shields overlapping, swords ready. A human battering ram designed to smash through enemy lines by sheer weight and discipline. Hannibal does something different. He places his weakest troops, Gauls and Iberians, in the center of his line, and he curves them forward, a convex bulge toward the Romans. On the wings, he places his best infantry, Libyans, in captured Roman armor, and on the far flanks, his cavalry. The Romans see the Carthaginian center jutting toward them and they salivate. They'll hit it, break through, roll up Hannibal's army from the inside. The battle begins. The Roman infantry charges. Thousands of men in perfect formation crash into Hannibal's center. The Gauls and Iberians are driven back, slowly, fighting, dying, but retreating. The Romans press forward. They're winning. They can feel it. The Carthaginian center is collapsing. But it isn't collapsing. It's bending. Hannibal's line curves backward, forming a crescent that envelops the advancing Romans. The Roman soldiers push deeper into the trap, so focused on the enemy in front of them that they don't see what's happening on the flanks. The Carthaginian cavalry routed the Roman horsemen. Now they wheel inward, and Hannibal's Libyan infantry, fresh and deadly, pivots and strikes the Roman flanks. The Romans are surrounded. 86,000 men packed into a shrinking pocket, unable to maneuver, unable to retreat, unable to do anything but die. The killing lasts for hours. The Roman legions, the finest infantry in the world, are butchered like cattle. They can't use their swords because they're pressed too tightly together. They can't run because there's nowhere to go. They simply stand and wait for death. Consul Paulus dies fighting. Consul Varro escapes with a few thousand men. 70,000 Romans are killed in a single day. It is the worst military defeat in Roman history. Hannibal loses 6,000 men. After Cannae, the world holds its breath. Hannibal stands 50 miles from Rome. The city is defenseless. The legions are destroyed. There is nothing between him and the gates. His officers beg him to march on Rome immediately. In 5 days, one of them says, you will dine in the capital. Hannibal refuses. He doesn't have siege equipment. His army is exhausted. Rome's walls are formidable. And he knows he has always known that his strategy isn't to conquer Rome by force. It's to break Rome's alliances. Rome's strength isn't just its legions. It's the network of Italian cities and tribes that supply those legions. Hannibal's plan is to peel away those allies one by one, isolate Rome, force it to negotiate a peace that humbles it forever. So he doesn't march on Rome. He marches through southern Italy, offering freedom to any city that joins him. Some do. Capua, the second largest city in Italy, defects to Hannibal. Other towns follow. But most don't. This is what Hannibal doesn't understand about Rome. This is what his genius can't account for. Rome doesn't break. After Cannae, the Romans didn't surrender. They don't panic. They don't negotiate. They raise more legions. They empty the jails and arm the prisoners. They free slaves and put swords in their hands. They lower the age requirement and send boys to war. They refuse to acknowledge defeat because acknowledging defeat would mean Rome could be defeated, and that is impossible. Rome is not a city. Rome is an idea. And ideas don't surrender. The years blur together. Hannibal wins battles, defeats Roman armies sent against him, moves through Italy like a storm, burning and liberating and conquering. But he can't win the war. Carthage, his own city, betrays him. The Senate sends him no reinforcements, no supplies, no support. They're terrified of Rome's retaliation, terrified of Hannibal's ambition. So they leave him stranded in Italy with a dwindling army and no way forward. Hannibal writes letters begging for help. The letters are ignored. His brother Hasdrubal tries to bring reinforcements from Iberia. He crosses the Alps with a second army, intending to link up with Hannibal and finally crush Rome between them. The Romans intercept him at the Metaurus River. Hasdrubal dies fighting. The Romans cut off his head and threw it into Hannibal's camp. Hannibal looks at his brother's severed head and understands that he is alone. In Rome, a boy named Publius Cornelius Scipio is growing into a man. He is the son of the consul Hannibal defeated at the Trebia. He fought at Cannae and survived. He has studied Hannibal, learned from him, understood that the only way to beat the Carthaginian is to think like him. Scipio is given command of Roman forces in Iberia. He drives the Carthaginians out, cuts off Hannibal's supplies. Then he does something audacious. E invades Africa. In 204 BC, Scipio landed an army near Carthage itself. The Carthaginian Senate panics. They recall Hannibal from Italy. After 16 years of war on Roman soil, Hannibal sails home. He brings what remains of his army. Veterans who have followed him through hell, men who have fought for him, bled for him, believed in him, but they are not enough. The final battle happened at Zama in 202 BC. Hannibal faces Scipio on a dusty plain in North Africa. It is the clash of titans, the student against the master. Hannibal has war elephants. Scipio has learned from Cannae. When the elephants charge, Scipio's troops open lanes in their formation. The elephants run through harmlessly. Scipio's cavalry, led by Numidian horsemen who have switched sides, rout Hannibal's cavalry. Then the infantry collides. The battle is brutal, close. For a moment, it seems Hannibal might win. But Scipio's cavalry returns. They hit Hannibal's rear. It is Cannae in reverse. Hannibal's army breaks. The greatest general of the age is defeated on his own soil by a Roman who learned everything from him. The war is over. Carthage sues for peace. The terms are devastating. They must pay crushing reparations, dismantle their fleet, surrender Iberia, become a vassal state, neutered and humiliated. Hannibal survive. For a few years, he even governs Carthage, tries to rebuild it. But Rome doesn't forget. They demand he be handed over. So Hannibal runs. He flees to the east, offers his services to kings who hate Rome. But Rome's reach is long. They hunt him, pursue him across the Mediterranean. In 183 BC, cornered in a small house in Bithynia, knowing the Romans are outside and there is no escape, Hannibal takes poison. His last words, according to legend, "Let us relieve the Romans of their anxiety." He died at 64 years old, far from Carthage, far from the Alps, far from the oath he swore as a boy. Rome will never forget him. For generations, Roman mothers will quiet their children with threats. Hannibal is at the gates. The phrase becomes synonymous with existential dread, with the terror of annihilation. Because Hannibal came closer than anyone to erasing Rome from history. He didn't have the resources. He didn't have the support. He was one man with an army of mercenaries fighting the most powerful state in the Mediterranean. And he nearly won. That is his legacy. Not victory, not conquest. Terror. The knowledge that Rome, eternal Rome, could bleed, could stumble, could nearly fall. The Carthaginian army he led was a thing of contradictions. Men who spoke different languages and worshipped different gods, but who followed one man into the impossible. Who crossed mountains no army should have crossed. Who won battles they should have lost. Who fought for 16 years in enemy territory, cut off from home, abandoned by their own city. They were Iberians and Gauls, Numidians and Libyans. They were mercenaries and patriots, fanatics and opportunists. But they were all, in the end, Hannibals. And when he died, far from home, poisoned and alone, the echoes of their march still haunted Rome. The thing about hatred is that it consumes everything. Hannibal Barca spent his entire life devoted to a single purpose: the destruction of Rome. He sacrificed armies, sacrificed cities, sacrificed his brother, his country, his own future. And in the end, Rome stood. Not unchanged. Rome was scarred, traumatized. The losses at Cannae would be mourned for centuries. The terror Hannibal inspired would shape Roman military doctrine forever. But Rome endured, and Hannibal did not. There is something unbearably tragic about that. A brilliance wasted. A genius who could have built empires, spending his life trying to destroy one. A man who could have been anything, choosing to be Rome's nightmare and nothing else. His father's oath became his prison. The boy who swore by the altar in Carthage never had a chance to be anything except what that oath demanded. And when he took the poison in Bithynia, when he felt the coldness spreading through his body, was it like the Alps? Was it familiar? Did he think of Rome? Or did he think of the boy he used to be, before the hatred, before the wars, before the endless march toward a victory that would never come? The Alps stand unchanged. Snow still falls on those peaks. The passes are still treacherous. The wind still howls. But no one crosses them anymore the way Hannibal did. No one tries, because what he did was impossible. And yet he did it. That's what remains. Not the battles he won, not the tactics studied in military academies, not even the fear he inspired. What remains is the impossible made real. The proof that one man, with nothing but will and genius and an oath sworn in childhood, could bring an empire to its knees. Rome would conquer the world after Hannibal, would become the foundation of Western civilization, would build roads and aqueducts and laws that still govern us today. But they never forgot the man who almost ended them, because Hannibal Barca taught Rome what it meant to be afraid. And that fear, more than any victory, is his true legacy. The soldiers who followed him into Italy, the ones who survived Trebia and Trasimene and Cannae, who endured the cold and the hunger and the endless fighting, where did they go when it was over? Some went home. Some stayed in Italy, married local women, and disappeared into the population. Some died on battlefields whose names no one remembers, but they carried the memory of crossing the Alps, of fighting beside Hannibal, of being part of something that should never have happened but did. They told their children told theirs, and the story survived, because some things are too large to forget. The Carthaginian army was never just an army. It was a demonstration of will over circumstance, of what humans can endure when they believe in something, even if that something is just a man's promise to make the impossible real. They marched through hell because Hannibal walked ahead of them. They fought Rome because he taught them Rome could be beaten. They died because he demanded it. And in the end, when Carthage was destroyed, when Rome finally lost patience and razed the city, killed its people, salted the earth so nothing would grow, the Carthaginian army was already gone, lost to time, but not to memory. There is a moment in every great tragedy where you can see the ending coming. For Hannibal, it was after Cannae, when he stood 50 miles from Rome and chose not to march, when he trusted strategy over instinct, when he believed the alliances would crumble and Rome would bend. That was the moment. Everything after was momentum, was inertia, was a genius trapped in a plan that no longer worked but couldn't be abandoned, because abandoning it meant admitting the oath was a lie. Hannibal never admitted that, even at the end, even when he took the poison. He died, believing he was right, that Rome deserved to fall, that his cause was just. Maybe it was. Maybe Rome was everything he believed, arrogant, brutal, destined to devour the world. But righteousness doesn't win wars, and hatred, no matter how pure, is not a strategy. The last elephant died somewhere in southern Italy. The sources don't record when or where, just that it died. Those magnificent creatures, symbols of Carthaginian power, almost all of them lost in the Alps. The survivors paraded through Italian cities, terrifying the locals. But they were never effective weapons, too slow, too vulnerable, too difficult to control in battle. But they looked glorious. And maybe that's all Hannibal needed them for, to make his army seem like something from myth, to make Rome look at the horizon and see not just soldiers but monsters. Fear is a weapon. Hannibal understood that better than anyone. And when the last elephant died, and the Romans realized they were fighting just men, brilliant, dangerous men, but still just men, the spell broke. Scipio Africanus, the man who defeated Hannibal, met him years later, after Zama, after the peace. When Hannibal was in exile and Scipio was touring the east, they talked. The sources say Scipio asked Hannibal who he thought was the greatest general in history. Hannibal named Alexander the Great, then Pyrrhus of Epirus, then himself. Scipio, amused, asked, "What if you had defeated me at Zama?" Hannibal replied, "Then I would rank myself above Alexander." It's a story that might be apocryphal, but it feels true, because Hannibal never stopped believing, never stopped thinking he should have won, never stopped being the boy who swore an oath and meant it. And Scipio, magnanimous in victory, understood something profound. That defeating Hannibal didn't diminish him. That Rome's survival made Rome greater precisely because Hannibal had come so close to destroying it. The word Carthaginian barely exists anymore, outside history books. Carthage itself is in ruins. The empire it built is forgotten. The language it spoke is dead. Rome erased it so thoroughly that almost everything we know about Carthage comes from Roman sources. From the people who hated it, who feared it, who wanted it gone. And yet, Hannibal endures, not as a Carthaginian, not as a hero of a lost civilization, as something else, as the embodiment of defiance, of genius, of what it means to refuse to accept the limits the world imposes. Rome wanted him forgotten. They wanted Carthage to be a cautionary tale, a warning about what happens when you challenge Roman destiny. But they couldn't forget him, because he was too good, too terrifying, too close. And so they preserved him, in their histories, in their nightmares, in the very language of fear they passed to their children. Hannibal is at the gates, not the Carthaginians, not the enemy. Hannibal, the man, the ghost, the one who almost won. If you could speak to him, in those final moments in Bithynia, What would you say? That he was right? That Rome deserved what he tried to do to it? That he was wrong? That the oath was poison, and he wasted his genius? That he should have marched on Rome after Cannae? That he should never have crossed the Alps? The truth is, nothing you could say would matter, because Hannibal Barca made his choice when he was 9 years old. Everything after was just keeping the promise. And promises like that don't break. They consume. They burn. They take everything you have and everything you are and turn it into fuel for a fire that never stops. Hannibal burned for 55 years. And when the fire went out, when he swallowed the poison and felt the darkness coming, there was nothing left. No regrets. No second thoughts. Just the cold. The same cold from the Alps. The cold that finds your bones and never lets go. The Carthaginian army marched into legend. Not because they won, they didn't. But because they tried. Because they followed a madman across the impossible and made it real. Because they stood on battlefields and made Rome bleed. Because they were proof that empires are not invincible. That destiny is not fixed. That one man with enough will can make the world hold its breath. They lost. But they are remembered. And in the end, maybe that's the only victory that matters. The knowledge that they were here. That they fought. That they made Rome, eternal Rome, wake up screaming. Hannibal Barca is dead. Rome is dead too, in its way. The empire fell. The city that conquered the world was itself conquered. But the story remains. Of the boy who swore an oath. Of the man who kept it. Of the army that followed him into hell and back and learned that hell, sometimes, looks like snow and ice and the endless march toward a destiny that will destroy you. They marched anyway. And that more than any battle, more than any victory is why we still remember them. Because we understand. We understand what it means to make a promise and keep it, no matter the cost. We understand what it means to see the impossible and refuse to look away. We understand what it means to burn. And in the end, we honor the ones who burned brightest, even if they left nothing behind but ashes and a name whispered in the dark. Hannibal. At the gates. Forever.